in the funnel process, what would be logically the video that we would first shoot? The first video somebody's likely to see in this whole process that we discuss. Tough question, right? Yeah, the Facebook ad, right? So I would be on the news feed, somebody would be scrolling, and there's some crazy dude in a suit would be like, hey, listen, if you want to know the most powerful business model that somebody from scratch could start making some part-time money, and it's a site you use constantly and aren't even aware of how it works, well, then go ahead and click through here. I got a book on the whole process. You can download it and be off to the races. See you on the page. That's not that bad. And I just did that off the top of my head, right? That would be where we'd start. And then where could the next video be that we could put in this funnel? Ben? You got to quit scratching your head, man. we gotta like have a signal or something like that. All right, so the next video could be on the squeeze page. Hey, listen, you're about ready to download this book. It's so cool. I printed off a copy. It looks like this, but you can get it for free when you digitally download it by putting in your name and your email. And then the next video would be on the thank you page. Hey, let's start the training right now, because the internet is kind of a big thing. So while that book is waiting to find your email inbox and going through all those pipes and tubes and stuff, let's start talking right now since I got your attention. And then I would start with the disguised sales pitch video. And then on the email follow-up, we would create the videos, video 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We'd create the webinar registration video, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to hit all those videos. But I'm going to start with video 1. So if you're looking in your workbook, video 1 is the winning Amazon formula. That's the first piece of what they call product launch content, is the winning Amazon formula. So this is the first video somebody's going to see from the first email we send out. So hopefully they open it, click through, and start watching video 1. That's the video we're going to shoot. That's the first one we're going to shoot. We're going to shoot that here very shortly. We call this PLC, product launch content. This is my friend Jeff Walker, who's basically modeled this whole concept. And the idea here is, if we can get somebody emotionally engaged in advance of selling them something by educating and informing them, then we can get a better customer. They're more likely to purchase from us, and they're more likely to spend more money for us, right? And what we're doing with video 1, and what I recommend you do with video 1, like, Yuri, what do you sell, for example?
I sell course.
Interesting. We should talk more, by the way, on that. That's so he teaches people how to get people onto a webinar, correct?
Yeah,
with paid advertising. Excellent. And so in this case, video 1 for Yuri should be an overview of that model. From soup to nuts. High-level view, start to finish, holistically. Now here's why we do this. So why this is important. It's hard for the average person to visualize anything. I'll just tell you that right now. It's, when we used to do a lot of the NLP stuff, it was like, James, tell me a time in your life where you were just on, where everything was just working for you. I want you to get that picture in your head. You got that picture in your head? You got it? Okay. I'm not curious about the content, but is it a moving picture or is it a still image? See how hard it is for him to recall that, right? Do you know the answer to that?
Yes.
Is it a moving or a still image or a series of images or something else? Okay. Now, is it bright colors, dim colors, drab colors? What's the colors of this look like?
It was in the context of when it happened.
Don't care about the content of it, right? What are the colors? Is purple normal? Like, give me an idea of the colors, right? Are they bright? Are they dark?
They're bright.
Or is it a big picture or a small picture?
Big.
Okay, so this is not easy for him. And he's better than most people, because the most common answer you would get in NLP is, I can't see anything, right? And you're like, okay, so if I came in and shaved your dog and then wrote graffiti on it, would you like that? And they'd say, no. I'd say, how would you know that if you can't see what that looks like? Imagine it, right? We can all imagine it, but most of us have trouble understanding what we see in our minds, which is a problem. Because I want to sell you on the result in your mind before I ever sell you the product in person. The more likely you are to see the end result first clearly in your mind, the more likely you are to achieve it in person. This isn't just self-help drivel. I mean, I'm sure you've heard a million self-help experts say that, right? If you can see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand. That's what Bob Proctor says, and that's absolutely correct. Gosh, that's so powerful. But most people can't. That's why they have trouble. Our goal is to get somebody to first see it in their mind. If they can wrap their head around it, they're more likely to buy from it. That's why video 1 is the full picture. Now here's the caveat. If I just educate you, this is what the Amazon business looks like. This is what you need to know. Just the facts, ma'am. Sergeant Friday, right? What happens in that situation? Craig?
No excitement.
It's boring as hell. You can't bore somebody into buying, unfortunately. Some of you try that, and it doesn't work very well, right? Most webinars are boring. They start bad and they get worse. So we have to be interesting and engaging. But here's the other part. Have you ever listened to something and intellectually said, that is awesome. That sounds really cool. And then did nothing as a result of that to change your behavior? Happens all the time. I've probably read 15 books on high altitude mountain climbing. On climbing Mount Everest, climbing Annapurna, K2, right? I'm never going on one of those mountains in my life. I don't want to. I don't plan to. You couldn't pay me enough money to get on there and risk my life. There's a 20% chance you're going to die if you get on one of those mountains. Not interested, right? Well, why do I read it? Because it's intellectually stimulating. It's cool to know. It's like, huh, didn't know about that, right? And most of us, when we create product launch content, we make things that are intellectually stimulating but don't create desire and demand. And that's the caveat. So what you're going to see me do here today is create desire and demand. I already did it this morning if you're paying careful attention. What did I do? When? What am I referring to? I mean, I've done this a lot, obviously, but what's one of the most obvious ways that I stimulated and created desire and demand? I went to Yuri and I said, would you like to do a lot better in the future or stay the same? And he says, I want to do a lot better. And I said, do you have to do the same behavior to do a lot better, or do you have to have different behavior, right? I gave him a desire to change his outcome. That's what we do with product launch content, specifically in the beginning. I can't just educate you and hope you fill in the blanks, okay? I got to stick the knife in and then I got to twist it so I leave a scar. And so when I do this, that's what you're going to discover. That's the number one thing that we're going to strive to do with this product launch video number 1. We're going to do the whole picture. Now, I'm a subject matter at this. I've pitched on this for 6 years, 1,000 times over and over again. I'm going to do this with no notes. I'm going to do this with no outline, no preparation. I'm going to channel my inner Jeff Bezos, okay? It might suck the first time. So if this first video is not good, don't take notes on it. I'm going to say, that sucks. We're going to do it again. Because we're only going to roll out the winner. We're not going to show the outtakes that suck, right? So just so know that. So it might take me a little bit to get in flow. So we might have to audition some material and see how it fits and see how it lands. But I would rather do that, and I think you guys should do that as well, as opposed to try to get everything right before we get going. So we're going to do that. So here's what we're going to do. I want you to assume the audience in the role, in this case, of a very, very captivated and raptured listener. I'm not going to do feedback for this video or like call and response. I don't plan to, okay? If in the moment it hits me, I might break the rules, but I don't plan to. And what we're going to accomplish here is we're going to shoot for about 8 minutes of a video that somebody's going to see when they first click that email and be like, ooh, what's this? What's the Amazon business, right? So here's what I want you to do, the last thing, and then we're going to take like a 15-second pause, and then we're going to go. I want you to make notes, not of the content. Don't worry about the 4-step Amazon product listing, blah, 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 right? I want you to see if you can pick out some of the persuasive techniques I'm using. And then we're going to do a recap. All right. So I'm going to do a countdown I'm going to do a 5, 4, 3 countdown, and then we're going to go. That's what we're going to mark this first video, okay? Ready? Hey, Jason Fladlien here, and if you want to know about the most exciting business in the world, obviously at this point you know it's Amazon. But what about Amazon makes it the most exciting? Why should you, out of the millions and millions of options you could choose today, from driving Uber cabs or even filling out surveys online, buying real estate, what have you, what makes this opportunity so good? Well, first of all, I don't want to be presumptuous. I'm not going to assume that this opportunity is the best opportunity for you. I'm just going to give you some of the information related to this and help you decide if this is something that you can move forward with. Now, having worked with thousands of Amazon sellers of all shapes and varieties from all locations around the world, I can tell you, it seems to me that what makes it the best for these people is the following. First of all, you can get started from anywhere, and that's important to people. Second of all, it doesn't take a lot to get going. What I mean by that is you don't have to have an engineering degree. You don't have to have a stockpile in 6 warehouses where you can fill it with a bunch of junk that you buy from a swap meet or a flea market. It doesn't seem like you have to spend hours and hours and hours, 10s, 20s, 30s, 40s, hundreds of hours to make this a go. And here's what I really like about this. What I really like about this, and this is going to sound strange at first when I tell you this, but stick with me here. I like it because it produces thousands of dollars a month, not millions of dollars a month. What do you think that means? What that means is this. Anybody can sell you a lottery ticket, and yeah, they can point to the winners and say, those guys won, so therefore if you play the lottery, you can make millions and millions of dollars. And it's true, you can, 1 out of every billion times. So unfortunately, the challenge I've seen with most businesses online is that you either do really well and you're in the minority, or you do miserable and you're in the majority. And I don't know about you, but I'd rather risk 10 cents to make $1 than risk $1 to make 10 cents. And this is what we discovered in Amazon. So here's what happened with Amazon. This is why this is the world's greatest online business model from A to Z. Essentially, here's how this works. One day somebody says to themselves, I want to buy blank. So they might say, I want to buy a snorkel. Guess where they go? 1 out of 4 times, they will go to Amazon. 3 out of 4 times, anywhere else on the internet. But if the internet's a pie, 25% of that is Amazon's slice. So already, key number 1, if you want to make money online, go to where people are already spending money online. If you want to get wet, don't try to pray and make it rain. Find where it's raining and stand under the cloud. Okay? So Amazon commands this massive market for everyday things like snorkels. These are items that people buy by the thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, in some cases millions every single year. These are the kind of items that we want to sell. Now here's what's cool about this. How do they find these items? Do they see a big national branding rollout campaign with a celebrity spokesperson? Do they go through this multi-page advertisement in their favorite magazine? Or do they see this wonderful end cap when they go into a place like a Costco or a Walmart? Is it spent billions and billions of dollars of education to get somebody brand aware of something before they purchase that? No. Here's what's great about Amazon. If I were to go and look and buy a snorkel on Amazon, what do you suppose I would do in order to find that? I would put in words like snorkel, or blue snorkel, if blue is my favorite color. Or I might say travel snorkel, or any number of different variations with the word snorkel or other words like that. And here's what's beautiful about this too. This is what I like about this most of all, is I would do it on my phone in most cases. Now, I don't know the specific statistics, but something like 3 out of every 4 phones have the Amazon app installed. And here's what makes this so great is, in the past, if you were to buy something online, snorkel or anything, you would say first name, last name, address. I mean, come on, right? Who wants to do that? Amazon, it's like click, buy. Or even today, hey, Alexa, buy me that snorkel, would you please? Okay, 2 days later it arrives at your doorstep and you forgot you even ordered the thing. That's what makes this business so interesting and so attractive. Now here's the downside of this, because everything has a downside, is if people are going and searching and looking for things like snorkel on Amazon and they can one-click or in some cases no-click purchase this, you might say to me, well, Jason, first of all, how can I sell a snorkel or whatever? And second of all, why should they be able to find me when looking on Amazon for any particular product? That's a fantastic question. And so it's not just enough to know Amazon is the greatest opportunity online. It's not just enough to know that we can sell all kinds of different products. Here's what you need to know. Some products do better than others. Some products are easier to get your own version of than others. Some products are simpler and more straightforward to list on Amazon because every Amazon listing looks the same. Wouldn't you agree? They all kind of look the same, which is cool, but there's got to be some differences between your listing and somebody else's if they want to buy from you versus somebody else's snorkel. And then lastly, how do we go from who knows who you are to right at the top of search results like snorkel overnight on millions and millions of phones all across the world? Well, let's talk about that a little further. First of all, almost every single product that you buy, whether online or offline, whether it's in the airport or on the e-commerce store, it's usually not created by the person selling it. I don't know if you know this, but if you walk into Walmart, Walmart doesn't create every single one of those products. In fact, they create only a small amount of those. Now, here's the difference between, say, a Walmart and an Amazon. Walmart has how much shelf space to sell products? I don't know specifically what it is, but wouldn't you agree with me, it's a limited amount of shelf space. So if I'm not on the shelf, I can't make a sale on Amazon. Most often the case that I've seen, which has caused people to stay poor and not transcend into that wealthy bracket that we all want to be in, is if somebody can't give you money, it's hard to get rich. So right now you might reflect and say to yourself, is my situation a challenge of I'm not giving people the opportunity to buy things from me? And that's something that we all need to have if we want to get wealthy, but even more importantly, can they find it? That's the second portion of it. So the first thing we have to figure out is, can we get this product? It just so happens that we don't live in the local economy anymore. I don't know if you're aware of this. We live in the global economy. That milk that you buy from the store didn't come from the cow that was milked down the street. I mean, I'm a small town Iowa boy. We had cows all around us. The milk we're drinking probably came from California and went through a whole logistical nightmare of work, but it's like electricity. I don't know how this stuff works. I flick a switch on it, it just goes. The global economy is easier to play in than the local economy, and I'm sure you would agree with me. You go into these stores these days, and you got to practically tackle somebody to try to help you. Whereas online, guess what you get? You want it pink, you get it pink. You want it blue, you get it blue. You want it big, you get it big. You want it small, you get it small. You want this, you want that, you get it all. And you get the best sales clerks possible helping assist you with your purchase because they'll tell you with customer reviews, this is Amazon. And then you don't have to wait in a line, or worse yet, manually check yourself out in a line like you do offline. This is where all the money's going. So here's what's beautiful. Amazon is just a good opportunity getting better every single day. And when's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. When's the second best time to plant a tree? Right now. So I would like for you to want to plant the Amazon tree. So if you're planting the Amazon tree, you say, Jason, where do I find these products? I'm going to tell you, 9 out of 10 times you find them from China. Go into your house right now, grab a product, see if you can find made in China on it. There's a good chance that you can. Now here's what's great about this. If the product was on Mars, and that's where I had to go to get it, I would do it if it made sense. Because a lot of this stuff on Amazon, it's what do customers want, what are they looking for, what are they seeking out, but not getting. If somebody's dying of thirst and you had water, would it matter what container and jug it came in? It wouldn't, would it? Would it even matter if it's clean or not? Not so much. What would really matter is, do you got any money to buy this thing? And guess where most people are spending the most amount of money online? Amazon, by a huge factor. And so the idea here comes, how do we get a product from China to Amazon? Seems complicated, doesn't it? Well, using a smartphone was complicated when you first started to use it, until it wasn't anymore. Did you realize that that thing didn't come with an instruction manual for the most part? You just kind of opened it up. I mean, I got little kids, and they're on there doing things with this smartphone without even being taught. And that's the whole world. Everything has been reduced down to an interface these days. And what's really exciting about this is it's the same thing with sourcing online. We have literally sold products on Amazon that we've never touched, never felt, never smelt, from suppliers we never talked to, in person or on the phone even, all through typing on keyboards and Skype messages and whatever the case may be. And the only difference here is we've actually broken down a manual on how to do it. And in fact, if you want to see some of this in action, what you want to do right now is register for the webinar that's right here below me in this video. And it's super easy. You click on it and you'll get even more full details in the 4-step process of listing products on Amazon. After you select them, how do you source them, get them live, and get them showing up at the top. Because here's the thing about Amazon that's different than any other experience online or offline. Amazon is a data machine. Amazon wants to sell the customer the most relevant thing for the customer. And how does Amazon go about doing that? They say, well, if it's this product and this person does these things, then we'll see if a customer buys. If a customer buys, if one customer of our 300 million customers that are Prime members buys, well, then we'll roll it out to the other 299,999 million people, right? We'll find everybody like that. So your job isn't to find 1,000 customers to sell this to. Your job is to find one customer who wants to buy this. And Amazon will then help you, put you in front of the other 1,000 customers who are just like them. And this is why Amazon's so exciting. Now to me, and this is important for you to understand, and I think you're going to see this in the webinar, I have people who have made hundreds of thousands of dollars the first few months that they've joined and started in Amazon using some of the resources, education, training, and so forth that we provide. But I'm going to tell you this over and over again. I want you to start with that extra $2,000 or $3,000 a month. Because if you were to wake up tomorrow and had $3,000 more dollars in your bank account than you do now, and you knew that was coming in every single month, how would the quality of your life be different? How would that change things for you? You got that? All right. I'll see you in the next video, and hopefully even before that, if we have a webinar coming up here soon that you can join and be a part of, even better. One way or another, we're going to keep unraveling this Amazon experience for you, because I will tell you, right now, 1 out of every 2 products sold on Amazon comes from people like you and me. And the best part of all, it goes from China to the customers 2 days or less, and all you got to do is follow 4 simple steps to make that happen. If you're interested, go ahead and join that webinar, and we'll break it down even further. Done. Okay? Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. What the hell did we just do there? Any initial thoughts? And let's get some mics around here for the recordings. Is that, you're scratching your head there? Or? Okay, good. I can say that's a big head.
It's like the headline in a newspaper. You know, it's the thing that grabs attention. I saw a lot of, okay, you may have never heard of this before, but this is the opportunity. Not too, in depth with the details, so that there's still something they need to dig for. But if you make it to a certain point in that video, you're absolutely signing up. And it's just like scratching a little deeper as you went, it seemed like.
Yeah.
But never really going into too much of the details of each part of it.
Totally. And we will, by the way, in the next video, right?
Right.
So this is, in the webinar, of course, we'll go even deeper, but this is the idea here of, we start with the big picture. And by the way, if I had to do that again, I'm actually pretty happy with it. We might revisit it later, but I would have maybe did it in a slightly different order. But the idea is you got all the pieces, right? I get products somehow or another from China. Amazon allows me to sell them, and people search and find them. And if I do a couple things right, a lot of people are going to buy my product. And I know I can make millions, but Jason wants me to only make thousands. Craig.
Yeah, you layered in the benefits and the attraction of the big picture, but you also created your authority by essentially displacing their biggest objections, that it's super hard, you have to go to swap meets. You didn't make any outrageous claims. In fact, you turned that into a benefit. You leaned into it, as it were. And
Yep.
Then you built from what's great about Amazon to what's exciting, and then there was the call to action. So there was a flow to it.
So there's one thing I did, and I did this super sophisticated, which in retrospect maybe not be the best thing for you to understand, but it was there. I was handling objections almost immediately in the first minute, but some of the ways that I handled the objections were very, very covert, not overt, right? Because I said something like, people from all around the world are doing this. I didn't say you can do this from anywhere in the world, but there's already this consideration that people from all over the world are doing this, because I know that that's an objection that our Amazon sellers have. And there was a couple other ones. I can't remember them off the top of my head right now, but immediately within the first minute, I'm handling objections. Because here's what happens. If you study psychology, if you tell somebody something that doesn't agree with their worldview, the very first thing they're going to do is push back on you. So if I'm telling somebody, listen, this is better opportunities than the stuff that's in your email inbox now, they're going to push back on me because I'm almost offending them. Well, are you saying I don't know how to find a good opportunity, Jason? Well, yes, I am saying that, right? But I'm not going to tell you that. I'm going to then handle your immediate kickback. And that's what we did there. So their immediate kickback is, why would I want to sell this? A lot of the sophisticated ways that I created desire and demand was using examples of how bad offline was. I spent little time talking about how Amazon is the greatest opportunity because it's growing, because it's big, and purchases are coming online. I spent more opportunity saying and using examples like Walmart and going into a store and not being able to find what you want and things along that nature. Because now I'm just creating this picture in their head that offline is for losers and Amazon's where all the cool kids hang out. And that indirect way of building desire is way more powerful than straight direct. But be direct if you can't be anything else. Tell them straight up. And I did both. Chaz.
I did notice that you're targeting the hundreds of thousands of people who never signed up for Amazon too, with the when is the best time to plant a tree 20 years ago. And so you're making it okay. Hey, look, you didn't do it 20 years ago, but you can do it now.
Right. Totally.
I thought that was pretty powerful because we both know there's thousands of people out there that wish they would have done it.
Yeah, that's a very astute observation, probably based on personal experience, because it took us 4 times to sell this old bastard into Amazon, and then he made a multi-million-dollar Amazon business as a result of it. But it took us a while to get there. Yeah, Chats, right? And there's a lot of people that have heard about Amazon and different types of Amazon selling. There's different ways to make money on Amazon. And what we did there was essentially let them off the hook, saying, because a lot of people have this doubt. They'd rather not do something today because they didn't do it yesterday, which is a stupid way of living life, but that's kind of how our brains work. It's cognitive bias. And so I put that off the hook. But the other thing that I did was create this fear of missing out too. Like every day I don't do this is a day somebody's taking my money and giving it to somebody else. Now here's what's great about this. If you do nothing else these next 2 days but just take my language patterns and use those and memorize those, you will make way more money than you're making now, right? These are rhetorical devices that I have curated over thousands and thousands of hours of selling, and I use that. That was one of them. When's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. When's the second best time to plant a tree? Today. Are you going to plant your trees? And that's a call to action. That's a desire for changing a behavior, right? What was another rhetorical device? Because I use them now so naturally, I can't even remember all of them. What was something else I did? The smartphone one, right? You got another one, Aline?
No, I really like
Better mic?
slow down. I really liked how you slowed down to emphasis that one part where you were just like driving the point home and like creating a lot of curiosities to what you were going to say next.
Right.
And then you ramped it back up, and then like the energy just felt like, oh my God, I need to keep up with him. Like this is really, really good.
So I'm glad you brought that up. First of all, again, on a rhetorical device is, and that was what I'm doing there is going to answer a question, but not right now. That's how you bring people along, right? As the rhetorical device with the smartphone is, hey, you have a smartphone, and you learn how to use that without a manual, so you have the technical ability. Almost anything you teach online has a technical component around it. It's the number one way I've found to handle that objection. So that's, again, another thing. If you just memorize stuff like that, you're going to make more money, because I've found the best ways to put in somebody's mind these general objections. Now, to your point, this is something I struggle with. I've never learned how to effectively teach this, but intonation, delivery, pacing, timing, far more important than what you're saying. I think we know that, but most of us are so in our heads with what we're specifically describing, we don't know how to use the most powerful form of communication, which is nonverbal. So if you go back and you listen to, I could talk about chalk for an hour, and you guys would be interested in it simply on how I can command the pacing and the tone. The one tip I will give you is change it just to change it, if nothing else. Mm-hmm. And so changing means how loud I talk versus how soft I talk. But it also means changing the patterns, because if I keep talking like this, and this is almost a musical pattern, and I start to lull into a melody, and you start to just go, you're now on autopilot because you can predict the context and everything I'm going to say, even if what I'm not saying, and it just becomes habituated. You quit listening because it becomes repetitive. So change up your delivery. So sometimes you might have to talk like this. And then when they get used to that, you change it up a little bit. Then you change it up a little bit more. Then you change it up a little bit more. And before you know it, you're building up to a culmination of volume and timing and everything else. Besides that, when you pay it off, it's big. So a little bit of that goes a long ways. So those are just simple things that you can practice. How loud am I speaking? How soft am I speaking? How fast am I speaking? How slow am I speaking? What's the rhythm? and then just a little bit of texture. Because if I'm excited, I mean, who here has seen somebody says, today I'm going to talk to you about happiness, but this is how they deliver it. Today I'm here to talk to you about happiness, right? And you're like, what the hell, right? Oh, I'm going to talk to you about confidence today. I could say, listen, I'm going to tell you how to be absolutely miserable, and you're going to hate every second of it, and boy, is it going to suck. And you're like, damn, this is sounding good. Because that's the texture of how you deliver the content, right? And for most of you, that would be an easy upgrade if you just learn more about that, okay? So we can unpack that a little bit more later. Carl, what else?
Yeah, I liked in the beginning where you said something like you want to give information so they could take, make their own decisions. I think that, the eventual defense they had when they came into the video was probably taken off there.
Yeah, so there's three ways essentially that you can handle an objection, or there's three ways that you can handle resistance. And of the three, challenging it is the worst, okay? I do this all the time in high-ticket selling, where it's somebody says, that's really expensive. The way you would challenge that, you say, well, what is expensive and what isn't expensive, because it's a really good deal. You're challenging that, right? And that can be done, and we do all that. The other way you do it is just to ignore it. You say, that's really expensive. And you say, here's the best part of the product. It does X, Y, Z. Now let's go and buy it. And that can be good too. My favorite way is to agree and then change what we're agreeing to, right? So somebody says, it's expensive? I say, yes, it's expensive for the wrong person. For the right person, though, geez, I can't even begin to imagine. It's almost unfair how much the right person can take advantage of me with this expensive price point, right? And that's a pattern. So what we do there is we sidestep, in this case, this disagreement frame. I don't want them to feel like I'm selling them right now. I want to make them feel like I'm informing them and helping educate them so they can make a proper decision. This is super important with cold traffic. Super important. Because immediately, if I sound like every other person that they see when they click through on a news feed, I'm hosed. The number one thing you need to do in marketing, and this is something that we don't do, is the opposite. We look at what everybody else is doing, and we do that. Oh, he does this, so let me do it. And that works for a little bit until it doesn't work anymore, because then the user gets blinded by all advertisements. So like, what's the big flavor of the month right now on Facebook? It's free plus shipping offers with books. And before you know it, everybody's doing it. Free plus shipping on my new book. And I'm like, oh my God, everything. It's crazy. And that's the moment you got to stop doing it, unfortunately. And then when everybody else stops doing it, you start doing it again. When everybody started doing video marketing, we went double down on PDFs because nobody was doing PDFs anymore. So the idea here becomes, if everybody else is trying to sell this end result, I'm just here to give you good information, help you make an informed decision. But here's what's great. When I say, listen, I don't know, Craig, if this is right for everybody. It's right for a lot of these people over here, and they're killing it, right? I don't know if it's right for you or not, though. It might not be. I mean, what do you immediately feel? Takeaway. What do you feel, though? You're like, why the hell isn't it right for me? How dare you say this isn't right for me? Let me prove you wrong and show you how it's right for me. So in psychology, we call this confirmation bias. So people are biased to things that agree to the reality or what they think the reality is. And so if somebody says to themselves, I'm going to look for the things that make this right for me, you're going to 100% have them think that this is right for them. That's the frame. So if we can cognitively get them to look for the things that are right for them, we guarantee that all of our audience is going to say, this is right for me, even though we told them this might not be right for you. Now, this is advanced selling. This is not elementary selling. This is not for the faint of heart. This is for the pros. What did I just do? Did the same thing to you, right? But it's true. And that's the challenge here. It's like, I don't believe that it's any harder to do that. But at the same time, I would much rather have somebody convince me that they should buy from me than me convince them. Now, I'll do both, right? But my goal is to say, listen, maybe this is right for you, maybe this isn't. I'm going to present the facts, and then you can make a decision. That's not what I'm doing at all, by the way. That is Totally not what I'm doing. So Yuri's probably getting a little nervous right now. What I'm doing is helping them understand. At the end of the day, I believe that the user is going to decide what's right for them or not anyway. I wish I had the magic power to make somebody buy something that they don't want. I haven't figured that out. But if I did, I would be richer than Bezos, right? But typically at the end of the day, people are really good at buying stuff, but they're really good at not buying the things that they want to and that they need. Or they take too long to buy them. Yes. Yeah. And so our job is to push as hard as we possibly can. Now what's great about that is when you do that, it doesn't feel like pushing anymore. It feels like you care, that you're sincere, that you're helpful. We will do more in that. So, and I'm going to attempt to do something that maybe not might be smart, but I'm going to attempt to draw this out, right? So I always think of persuasion in circles. And can we throw that on the screen up there? And so like on the inner side here is, let's just say that this is somebody, let me figure out. Nate, what do you sell? Yes, nice, right? So this works for any product. We'll do this a couple times. What's like, crap, people are so scared to reveal their products on Amazon.
I sell gloves.
You sell gloves?
Yeah.
What kind of gloves?
Winter gloves.
Winter gloves, right? Okay. So this will be a little bit more challenging for winter gloves, but we'll see it. At the time, this person who, at the circle here, this is somebody whose hands are freezing off and they need to buy gloves ASAP, right? Which, by the way, they wouldn't shop on Amazon if that was the particular case. They'd go to the store and grab them. So this is clearly somebody who needs winter gloves but doesn't need them immediately, right?
Nope, they usually want them that weekend.
Well, listen, I want my cake and eat it too, right? I want to make more money and grow younger, not older, you know? But it's like, what do we want and what do we settle for? These are the tough things about buyers. But at the center of this is the most strongest, clearest appeal, which in this case is, my hands are cold and I want to make them warm. So that's like your most, what we'll call the primal motivator. But if you go to an audience and you say, hey, listen, I got these gloves, your hands are cold, why don't you buy them? You probably won't do very well. So then you need the secondary motivator. And so in this particular case, the secondary motivator for an audience that is wanting gloves is essentially their motivator here may very well be how thick these gloves are or how thin these gloves are. Because maybe that's important to them. And I'm just making this up. But there's something that is the obvious one. Then there's a secondary one. This is the corollary to that. So these are not just good gloves, but these are gloves that are maybe men's gloves or just women's gloves. Or there's some sort of secondary element. Okay? You follow?
Yep.
Okay?
Dexterity.
Yeah, exactly, right? And then we start to get to the psychological problems. And so the psychological fear of making a bad purchasing decision. So in this case, worst case scenario, if somebody makes a bad purchasing decision with your gloves, we'll get it. Okay, cool. If somebody makes a bad decision buying your gloves, what's the worst that happens to them?
Have to return it, or they just have to say, "These sucked. I'm getting something else."
Yeah, that's the effect, but the cause is essentially their hands are cold. Maybe they get frostbite, maybe, the worst case scenario, right? But really, ultimately, what happens is they wasted their money and their time for your type of purchase. So that's the big psychological fear is this one. And so that's going to be the determinant that helps them get through this. Here's the problem with primary motivation is everybody says this. So you're no different than anybody else. Secondary motivation, the challenge with this is you get into a drag race where if your little feature works, I can assimilate your feature into my product. And then the disadvantage evaporates, right? The advantage does. The psychological fear gets really interesting because people are scared to make wrong decisions more than they're excited to make right decisions. So we always have to let them off the hook to allow them to know that if you make a bad decision, you're not going to look like an idiot. But before we do that, we have to first gain leverage. So every persuasion model that I look at, the degree in which we do all these really differs based on price point, education, and so forth, right? Boy, I can't put this on. There we go. So the leverage is, how do I get you to want to listen to me, downplay your psychological fears so I can sell your primary and secondary motivation for your product. So for you, it's really easy because your leverage is Amazon itself. You're like, well, it's on Amazon. I trust Amazon, so I'm not going to make a bad decision. So the leverage is you get their attention. Psychological fear is mitigated because Amazon is the most friendly return policy on the planet. And then you just got to sell primary and secondary motivation, which are done through keywords for the most part, right? Yeah. So let's take now an information product and walk it through. Same model, by the way. James, do you have a? Yeah. Let's get him a mic.
They reset it if you want to redo it.
Yeah, this isn't super important. Yeah, we'll fix it for the next break, right?
Okay, it's a website to help people with.
Speak up a little bit.
It's a website to help people with Asperger's.
Asperger's
education to help the families.
Right.
The parents.
Okay. Yeah. So in this particular case, the primary motivation is what is the big outcome that this product solves?
So they can go to. So the kids can be self-sufficient. And they can.
Yeah, so self-sufficient is a feature.
And a much calmer.
What can the parents and or kids do now that they couldn't do before?
Communicate and have a calm household.
Okay, and why is that important?
Because it's very stressful if it's not.
Okay, and if it's stressful and it's not, what happens?
People don't. The kids can't get off the spectrum.
And why is it important to get off the spectrum?
So they can have a job. So they
interesting. They don't want their kids to be complete societal failures, right? They want them to be functioning members of society. That's what your product does.
Yes.
It turns people that are on the fringes who could be lost in the shuffle and completely disenfranchised, and it empowers them to be able to do the things that most of the rest of society take for granted, but you as a parent, you know the struggle day to day. That's primary motivation. Now, by the way, unfortunately, most of you don't even get that far. Because you thought you were selling a product that helped kids with Asperger's get off the spectrum, right? Yeah, listen, if my kid's ASD, he's on the autism spectrum disorder, right? I don't give a shit if he gets off it or not. If that kid goes further on it, but becomes the next Steve Jobs, I'll be okay with that, right? My goal isn't spectrum on or off, because that definition changes every single year, right? My goal is to be able to do the things that I feel as a parent I should be able to do, but that I also enjoy doing, that are easy, and that are exciting for me and my kid to grow together, and allow him to be functional and to be his optimal self, right? Those are secondary motivators. That's what I just added in there. So see how I colored in the picture? Right? And then the psychological fear is you're scared that if you take your child through, or if I take my child through your process, James, you're going to fuck him up more than he already is, right? In that case, I'm paying you money and making my child worse versus doing nothing, and at least my child's not getting worse. That's your psychological fear.
Another psychological fear would be that they end up homeless. They can't provide for themselves.
Yeah, so those are related to motivators.
Okay.
So this is why these are in circles. Because somebody doesn't make a purchasing decision with you based on their primary motivation. Because if that was the case, they'd be buying 150,000 different products on Asperger's solutions, right? And then they don't do it because your product is slightly better than the next person's. Because if your product is better than the next person's, they will steal your product, reverse engineer it, and put it in their shit in no time flat, right? So you can't get a long-term advantage with that. They enter in saying, well, why should I listen to you and pay attention to you to understand the main and the secondary benefit of what you have to offer? But before they go into this, there's this concept called persuasion. So I actually met Robert Cialdini. He's like my favorite author of all time, and I met him in this very room. And how the opportunity is framed. How the opportunity is framed can largely determine how you respond to it. This is what I call leverage. He calls this persuasion. And so the idea here becomes, if a woman comes up to a man on the street and says, hey, listen, these thugs over there on Main Street, there was 3 of them, they stole my cell phone, will you help me go get it back? That's case 1. The second case is a woman goes up to a man and says, hey, these thugs over here stole my phone on Valentine's Street, will you get it back? Guess what group is more likely to comply with this absurd request of confronting 3 thugs to get some strange woman's phone back? The Main Street group or the Valentine's Street group? The Valentines. What does the name of the street have to do with everything or anything or nothing? It puts them in the mood to be romantic, to be that man that saves that woman because of the word Valentine's. That's the leverage, right? So in this particular case, what I just did in video 1, and this is one of the reasons why we started, is I want to get immediate leverage with the Amazon audience. And by the way, if you think I'm doing this all consciously, think again. This is all unconscious. But the idea is the concept is always the same. I get a leverage through authority. How do I get authority? I get authority by being different than the last 156 people that they've listened to. And that's how we do that. That's why I set that frame. Everybody else is going to hard sell their course to these people and hard sell their solution and say it's the best. I'm going to say it's the best for the right person. Are you the right person? I've now just changed the leverage. So now we can start addressing the psychological fears, the secondary motivators, and the primary motivators. And pay attention to that as we go through this process a little bit more.